Hi, I'm Senator Phil Fortunato of the 31st Legislative District. It's budget season as we enter the final weeks of the 2019 legislative session. To no one's surprise, we've learned that once again, tax collections are up, way up. The state is projected to take in almost $1 billion a year more than expected. That's nearly $5 billion more in your tax dollars than we had since approving the last budget without raising taxes. So what are our friends in the majority party planning to do with all that extra money you send to Olympia? Raise taxes, of course. The House Democrats' budget proposal would increase spending by 19% over the current budget and would rely on over $4 billion in new taxes, including an unconstitutional income tax. The Senate's version of the budget is less expensive, but it still would raise taxes and state spending by over 16%. Washington leads the nation in personal income growth at almost 7%. That's 3% higher than the rest of the country. To put that in perspective, if these budgets were enacted, all the gains you would have seen in your family's income and more will be taken from your household budget to grow government. Before the 2019 legislative session began, I've been touting that our state's economy was in such good shape because of the federal tax cuts and deregulation. The state's chief economist said the same thing on TVW. So while the tax cuts and deregulation have been putting money in people's pockets, as evidenced by the record amount of your money sent to the state, the majorities in the House and the Senate are working overtime to implement more taxes and more regulations that will grind our economy to a halt. Don't get me wrong, we need to fund mental health. We need to make sure special education is adequately funded. But the reality is we can do all these things and more with the $5 billion you're already sending to Olympia. What we really need with all this unexpected revenue is a generous tax cut. I offered proposals that would get rid of the sales tax on clothes and prepared food, a $2 billion tax break for working families, but that effort was rejected. I also pushed for a budget proviso that would reward state employees for finding waste in government. I've heard complaints from frontline workers who are also taxpayers about the waste and inefficiency they see every day. But that too was shot down. But it's not just taxes on families and small business that will have you and the economy down. It's the hidden cost of regulations too. While federal Democrats were smart enough to vote down the Green New Deal, legislators in Washington state have been slowly implementing this toxic policy here. Just take a look. What you're seeing is a comparison of bills introduced in Olympia that mirror policies outlined in the federal Green New Deal. So what's the effect? Unaffordable energy and rolling brownouts, double-digit increases in gas taxes without new roads or congestion relief, higher prices to heat your home, and increased food costs. The bills are so complex and far-reaching that no one really has a clue what they'll do, aside from making your life more expensive. Let's take a look at a typical family in Auburn. Joe and Sue have been fortunate enough to buy a home, make a decent living, and have a pretty average lifestyle. What will their life look like when some of these bigger proposals from the majority are enacted? Nearly $2,000 more in taxes per year. So don't worry, Joe and Sue, it's only $150 a month that you can pay for a bureaucratic nightmare and economic recession courtesy of Washington state Democrats. I'm fighting against these outlandish and special interest-driven policies that will have us in the poorhouse for a 0.2% impact on the Earth's environment. I'd like to know what you think. I'm State Senator Phil Fortunato.